Is the Doomslayer really the person we believe him to be? With Doom Eternal, the upcoming sequel to Doom 2016, quickly becoming a highly anticipated title, questions arise. What are the origins of the Doomslayer? And what can we infer from the plot of Doom Eternal? At any rate, hints of stories past can be found only if we stop and listen. So with all that being said and done, let's discuss Doom Eternal's secret lore. In preparation for our analysis relevant to Doom Eternal, permits a brief summary leading up to it. Through fire and blood, the Doomslayer commenced his berserker spree in Hell, only to be ensnared in a sarcophagus by Hell priests, later coming to by Samuel Hayden, overseer of the UAC operations on Mars. Through their efforts, the demonic invasion ceased by aid of the Crucible, a cryptic artifact that shut the Martian portal to Hell. Together with defeating Olivia Pierce, then turned Spider Mastermind, the Slayer routed the Hell invasion, yet was betrayed by Samuel, seizing the Crucible in the process, thus leading us to the events of Doom Eternal. Be that as it may, questions remain. For instance, who is the Doomslayer? And what is the Crucible? Without a doubt, new information regarding Doom's sequel has been a source of debate. Questions concerning both the Slayer's origins, the Crucible, and the Doom universe as a whole have expanded from its wake. Be that as it may, there is still a hidden but weighty piece of lore is found within 2016's Doom. Upon the Slayer's first visit back to Hell, he encounters Kadinger's Sanctum, a sprawling network of tunnels, catacombs, and temples. Amongst the hellscape, the Slayer encounters this enigmatic tree. Upon closer examination, this is heard. A voice stems from within the tree. If you listen closely, they say something. Could he be Demonkin, spawned from the loin of a grotesque infidel? Yet the seal of the heretic binds him. His origin is as dark as his coming. The power held within the Crucible will punish man born and Demonkin alike. It will crush the divide. It will corrupt all realms. It will create the monster. It must never be found. Yet even as the Doomslayer revels in the spoils of his war, another shall rise from the fires. A dark priest consumed by the Crucible, and even the Doomslayer shall weep in his shadow. The heretic-turned Apostle Olivia birthed the dawn of our resurrection. By her hand we cross the divide, and for her tribute, she shall be granted the form of the dread widow. What does this indicate? Well, 3 individuals are referenced: the Slayer, Olivia, and a mysterious entity known as the Dark Priest. Considering this entity was referenced with a male pronoun, I do not believe this was referencing Olivia. Moreover, the augury details that this individual will be consumed by the Crucible. Nonetheless, this forecast is interesting, that someone or something might stand up to the Slayer. Even so, what can this prediction tell us in context to Doom Eternal or the identity of the Slayer? In our search, we delve into a much more comprehensive analysis on the Crucible. To this end, we will study the Night Sentinels, an order of knights who oppose Hell. Their markings are found all throughout both 2016 and Eternal, which led us to the series of statues found in their burial grounds, in which an entity is holding the same artifact. Mysteriously, sculptures differ between ones that wield the Crucible, along with others that remain barren. In a past video, I theorized the possibility in which the Crucible may have been stolen. I will expand on that theory. This Crucible-wielding entity appears prominently within Sentinel ruins along with 2 others. And thanks to new Doom Eternal information, we know now that one of these entities is associated with these angelic figures known as Makers, presumably led by their leader, the Khan Maker. Moreover, their homeworld Urdok in particular shares a unique connection with the Night Sentinels, as stated within Codex entries. In the days before man first spoke, an immense shard of rock and metal were cast into the world from the heavens. Thunder and cataclysm shook the land as the skies were torn asunder, and the cosmic spear cleft a hole through our mortal lands pole to pole, from the cold wastes of the umbral plains to the fetid swamps of Ironfang. The womb of the world opened, and the elemental wraiths, the firstborn, spilled forth. We built the Cathedral of Reflection to worship the first ones and form the Order of the Diag, whose priests pay tribute to the wraiths and appease their tempestuous hunger. With machine and enchantment of the Makers, the Argenta brought our newfound clarity to the desperate realms of the Empyrean Void. We took flight with support of the Khan Maker. We discovered there was not one enemy, but many. Worlds and peoples unknown to the Argenta were unveiled, and we saw our own suffering reflected in their eyes. So in their words, the creation of the Sentinels was very much influenced with their connection to the Makers, so much so that they developed a cadre with a unique name. The Sentinels of the Diag Order were made servants of Makers, while the latter were conquering Earth for a good reason. The immutable rule of the Sixth Seal forbids entering the realm of mortals. No creature, be it from Urdok or Hell, has the right to enter the realm of mortals once again. Within footage of a past Doom Eternal trailer, you see Night Sentinels appearing to stand in opposition to the Slayer. To hazard a guess, these Sentinels may be members of the Diag Order, and thus allied with the Makers, which led us to the Gift of Argent Power lithograph. Upon closer inspection, a priest-like figure stands next to a Sentinel King. The same priest is also seen with 2 others in promotional material. Their names are Diag Nylok, Skrav, and Ranak. Notice how the 3 priests are titled as Diag, with Sentinel lore in mind. These priests may have originally hailed from the Night Sentinels. In fact, it was Diag Grav who tricked the betrayer that led to the assimilation of Argent Denor back in Doom 2016. So with this in mind, have the Diag priests gone rogue, or are they just following orders directed from the Khan Maker, as the Codex indicates? Powerful practitioners of arcane magics, the priests have warped their powers to suit their insidious purpose, harnessing the dark forces of hellish psychomancy to prepare Earth for the final blood ritual. With their preparations in place, the priests awaited the omen of the Sixth Seal, that which beckons the arrival of Hell's Legion, to open the gates and usher in Hell on Earth as it was ordained by the Khan Maker. By blood were the Hell Priests bound to the dark ritual which now consumed Earth, and so long as even one of them lives, the consumption of Earth would continue, allowing Hell unfettered rule of the mortal world. Only by destroying the priests can the blood ritual be stopped, and the Earth saved. As you may have gathered by now, the term Six Seals are commonly referenced within the lore. Arguably, this is a reference to the 7 seals and trumpets found within the Book of Revelation, which inevitably leads to the end of days. So in short, it is likely that the Makers see themselves as bringing about some sort of prophesized end, utilizing the Hell Priests to usher in Hell on Earth, and forbidding anyone to interfere in the process. But what does this have to do with the Crucible, and the identity of both the Dark Priest and the Doomslayer? On the former, is it possible that the prophecy was referencing one of the 3 Hell Priests? Well, the augury specifically states that this entity would be consumed by the Crucible. In the case of the latter, upon obtaining the artifact back in Doom 2016, the Doomslayer encountered fallen Night Sentinels, almost as if they wanted the Slayer to obtain the Crucible. So what does this indicate? Well, within a past Doom Eternal trailer, you hear a unique statement from a marauder.
You are nothing but a usurper, a false idol.
Note the phrase false idol. Now, where have we heard that before? Well, within Codex entries, it is described that through the Titan's realm and down to the Great Step, where the trophies of victory are kept through the ages, their false idols banished to a wasteland, their towers fallen, their foundations ground to dust, and their hallowed halls kept empty as cruel reminders that civilization shall fall before the ascension of the Great Ones. In short, it is obvious that the Marauders share some sort of history with the Slayer, but what does Titan's realm have anything to do with it? Well, the area is part of the greater region known as the Great Steppe. Within its borders lies the Necropolis, the same location where the Crucible is kept and guarded, as noted. When the expedition of 2148 reached the Great Steppe, massive structures were found. Unlike any edifices yet seen in Hell, it is believed that these structures were native to this area, absorbed into Hell when the civilization was conquered. The presence of such high-ranking demons in the Necropolis suggests that the area holds some item of extreme importance or vulnerability to the demons. Current research suggests that this may be the lost artifact, known as the Crucible. In other words, the Great Steppe was a recently assimilated portion of Hell, a location subject to a past conflict, likely involving the Sentinels attempting to protect the Crucible. But where do the Marauders come into this scenario? Well, they might have been involved in the Great Steppe's assimilation. What I mean by that is the Night Sentinels appear to be internally divided. Since the Hell Priests originally hailed from the Night Sentinels, and they likewise are allied with the Makers, there appears to be a schism within Sentinel ranks between those who pledge fealty to the Makers and those that have not. With this in mind, the Marauders, like the Hell Priests before them, may have originally hailed from the Night Sentinels. But what more information is there? Well, we do know that these Hell Guards are now charged with the responsibility of protecting the Crucible. But where did they come from? Well, within the DLC map Boneyard, some unique insights are told. Not only do you see egg sacs carrying Hell Guard larvae, a rather unique corpse is spotted. Could it be a Titan? Or some large demonic entity? Well, notice anything familiar here. His skull appears remarkably similar to Diagronach's headpiece. Is there some sort of a connection here? Were the Hell Priests involved in the seizing of the Crucible and or the assimilation of the Great Steppe? Well, it may detail the infighting. But this raises another question. What are the origins of the Crucible? The only hints of the artifact's past hail from these monuments, whose depiction I am assuming is the original bearer of the Crucible. So, who is he? Well, within Doom Eternal concept art, you see the same set of statues. This art piece in particular is dubbed Hellspire. Additionally, within the DLC map offering, you see the same monument in a similar demonic setting. It appears as though whoever this entity may be is highly regarded in Hell. And if that's the case, is there anything in demonic lore that may have referenced this entity? Well, according to the Codex entries regarding the Barons of Hell, this is stated. Tablets retrieved from the Great Steppe in the UAC Automated Survey of 2143 suggest that the Barons of Hell are the current royal guard of the unknown Dark Lord of the Fourth Age. While the nature of this entity is unknown, it must be presumed that as the Royal Guard's power has significantly increased, so too has the power of their master. In fact, several times in the Codex entries have the term Dark Lord or Demon Overlord have been used. And perhaps this Crucible entity is among these Dark Lords as a high-ranking demon. Perhaps not. But what else can be determined? Well, what I find interesting is that the Night Sentinels seem to revere him, utilizing similar Crucible blades almost as a source of inspiration. And considering the possibility that the Hell Priests may have had a part in the stealing of the original Crucible, I am not entirely certain if the Sentinels that revere him are the same ones that follow the priests. Meaning it may be possible that the Hell Priests may not look at the Crucible or this entity in a favorable light. Which brings up a question. Is there a schism within demonic ranks? Well, before the Crucible's crypt, the Slayer witnesses demons fighting against each other. Is this just commonplace brutality? Or signs of infighting between those who are pledged fealty to the Hell Priests and those who follow this unknown Dark Lord? Who's to say? But what does any of this have to do with the identity of the Doomslayer? Well, this is where things get really interesting. Back to the map offering, you see the same Crucible-wielding entity in a demonic setting. However, before the monument lays a really puzzling find. Hidden beneath the floor lays this sarcophagus. Now, does this look familiar? Well, it appears similar to the one that the Slayer rose out of within Doom 2016. To paraphrase a bit, it was stated that the Hell Priests were the ones who originally buried the Slayer within the sarcophagus. But here's where things get even more puzzling. In the same map, these demonic lithographs are depicted. At face value, they don't say much, but a closer look reveals a curiosity. It appears as though an entity that resembles the Slayer is depicted on it. What does this all mean? The same lithographs can be found throughout the Great Steppe, the same location that brings talk regarding false idols, which brings further context to how the Marauder stated, "You are nothing but a usurper, a false idol." What did the Marauder mean by that? And why is there a second Slayer sarcophagus surrounded by depictions of the Slayer and this Crucible entity? In order to make sense of any of this, we head on over to the Fortress of Doom within Eternal, the Slayer's own private hub and home of sorts. Within these walls, the same Crucible-wielding entity is seen. Likewise, the other two Sentinel-revered monuments are depicted, since they currently do not have names as of the recording of this video. For the sake of utility, I'll call them the Maker Trio. Looking at the design of the fort, it is clear it is of Sentinel origin. Which raises a question. Why has the Slayer taken up residence here? Well, the fort contains a really unique artifact. The Unmaker. A weapon I am assuming the Slayer wishes to obtain to better equip himself in the fights to come. We have only seen this weapon one other time in the Doom series, within Doom 64. Interestingly, director Hugo Martin stated that Doom 64 was his first Doom title.
Good couple days for me. Hugo, something interesting I learned about you, if I have this correct, that your first Doom that you played was Doom 64.
Yeah,
the one
that
I
owned.
Yeah.
I had played Doom prior to that in the dorms on other people's PCs, but I didn't have a PC at that time. I was a Mac user, and so when Doom 64 came out, that was the first time I had a chance to dive in for several hours at a time into a Doom game.
But that's neither here nor there. On the topic, the Unmaker in Doom 64 was enhanced through the collection of the Demon Keys, while in Eternal, access to it is granted through the collection of the Empyrean Keys. This may have been done as a nod to the past entry, but if that is the case, are there any other similarities we can deduce? Does anything look familiar here? Well, the Demon Keys share a similar color scheme with the Maker Trio. So what does that say? Do these three have something to do with the creation of the Unmaker? Well, I am not entirely certain, but this raises yet another question. Is Doom Eternal connected with Doom 64, and by proxy, with the original Doom games? For a bit of backstory, the plot of these titles are relatively straightforward. A demonic invasion occurred on Mars, the Doom guy propels said invasion, only to do the same on Earth, then return to Mars and ultimately decided to remain in Hell, to ensure no other demonic invasions occur. However, if this were the case, that Doom 2016 and Eternal are connected with the originals, then does this mean that the Earth was invaded twice by Hell? That the UAC has previously encountered the Doom Marine, but for some reason has no idea who the Doomslayer is? How does that make any sense? Well, there might be an explanation. Within the DLC map Sacrilegious, remnants of a battle are seen, with corpses bearing distinctive weaponry, wielding swords and shields pierced by arrows. What time frame did this region originally take place in? A possible insight resides from one of the Slayer testaments, which states, "And in his terrible rancor between worlds and through time, the Hellwalker found a wretch who shall not be named, but in his heresy was loyal to his evil cause." Notice the phrase, "between worlds and through time." What does that mean exactly? Is it possible that time works differently in Hell? During the events of Doom 2016, Samuel Hayden has noted that the Doomslayer is the only flesh and blood to walk between dimensions. In fact, Hell is often described as this extra-dimensional entity that wishes to spread itself, conquering new realms while moving on to the next. For example, areas such as Argent D'Nor and the Great Steppe were not originally from Hell, but rather absorbed and assimilated. With this in mind, could it be possible that the world in the original Doom games and the one found in Doom Eternal constitute two different realities? I realize that sounds really strange, and I may be stretching the logic here. Despite that, the Fortress of Doom contains interesting lore or Easter eggs depending on how you look at it. Within the Slayer's private quarters, many references to past games are seen. For example, a fan rendition of the Slayer and his pet rabbit are depicted. This bunny is named Daisy and appears within the original Doom games as the Doommarine's pet. If we were to count this within the lore, this would be strong proof that the Slayer and the Doommarine are one and the same. However, it appears as though the Slayer is a fan of comics and keeps a collection of books, many of which are references to Bethesda properties, the Doom novels, and pop culture. I have heard arguments that these items should not be counted within lore analysis, considering some of it is fourth wall breaking. For example, you can spot a Doom vinyl covering. So, whether or not you believe this constitutes as proof that the Doomslayer is the Doommarine, I leave at your discretion. But for the sake of fairness, I'll continue this analysis without counting it. So let's tackle the question once more. Is the Doomslayer the Doommarine found within the originals? To answer that, we go to a cutscene with the Betrayer, the man who is referenced within 2016's lore regarding the fall of Argent D'Nor. He states,
Saving your people will not bring you peace, only make the burden you carry worse. It is your people's time now to give penance, just as it was mine.
Notice the phrasing, your people, and it's your people's time now to give penance, just as it was mine. And the Betrayer speaks as if the Slayer originally hailed separately from the Sentinels, implying the Slayer shares an origin with Earth. If that were the case, is there any other information we can pull from? Well, the Slayer later encounters the Night Sentinel King Novik, in which he says,
You cannot kill the priests. You know our laws. Despite their transgressions against the Covenant, they are still of Sentinel blood. What you interfere with now is bigger than you can imagine. It is written. It is their time to give penance. If you continue, you will bring down the heavens' wrath. You are but one man. They are no longer your people to save.
also implying the Slayer has a unique connection with Earth, which may explain why he is going against Sentinel laws. Even so, these statements may be geared towards a different context entirely. With that being said, what more information is there? Well, enter Doom 64. And recently, an interesting piece of info came out. Apparently, Doom 64 will be seeing new content, and this is what senior developer James Haley had to say. On our end, persistent players will have the opportunity to unlock a new chapter in the Doomguy saga, taking place shortly after Doom 64's original campaign concludes. The mother demon you defeated in that outing had a sister, And since you've been messing up hell non-stop, she tries to get rid of you by sending you away. If you can make your way back and take revenge, you'll be rewarded with a bit of lore that fans of both series, new and classic, should enjoy. Now, what does this new bit of lore mean? Regardless of its implications, this reveal really took me by surprise. I did not expect Doom 64 after all these years to get new content. In addition, with Doom 64 re-releasing alongside Doom Eternal, does this mean there is some sort of a connection here? To the Unmaker appearing in the game, to the similarities across the Maker trio, to both launching at the same time, and Doom 64 getting new content. Suffice to say, it seems really likely that Doom Eternal shares some sort of a connection with the originals. Beginning with the Doom guys' original spree with the classics, leading to its transition with Doom 64, where the Slayer decided to remain in Hell to prevent future Hell invasions, and then across unknown stories against the Doomed. We are led to the events of Doom 2016, and eventually, Eternal. How is this possible lays with the composition of Hell, that as the Slayer went on his terrible rancor between worlds and through time, he is led to the events of modern Doom, in which he encounters a new UAC and a new Earth. But if this is the case, then why are there two Slayer sarcophagi? If we were to accept the idea that Hell is at a crossroads between realities, then is it possible that other Slayer entities besides the Doomslayer exist? If that's so, this brings a whole other meaning to the Marauders' phrasing. You are nothing but a usurper, a false idol. That the Doomslayer isn't the only one around. Will we encounter anyone like this within the events of Doom Eternal? Well, we'll have to see. However, questions still remain. Back to the tree prophecy, it states, "The power held within the Crucible will punish man-born and demonkin alike. It will crush the divide. It will corrupt all realms. It will create the monster. It must never be found." Note how the augury states that even demons don't want the original Crucible to be found. In addition to, yet, even as the Doomslayer revels in the spoils of his war, another shall rise from the fires, a dark priest consumed by the Crucible, and even the Doomslayer shall weep in his shadow. Does this indicate that through the Slayer's rancor, someone will be obsessed with the Crucible and become this dark entity? This raises a question. Where is the Crucible now? Well, last time we saw it, Samuel Hayden took it at the end of Doom 2016. But if trailers are anything to be believed, he seems to be a broken mess. In other words, it is currently unknown what happened to the original Crucible. Was it taken from him? Will this plot point lead to the prophecy of the original Crucible? Well, this is also something we'll have to wait and see. As you may have perceived, many questions persist. While we may have answered some, there are still many unknowns. What are the true origins of the Crucible? Who are the entities in the Maker trio? Who is the Seraphim? In a past video, I mistakenly thought the voice in the Doom intros were him. Instead, it was the Night Sentinel King Novik. Which raises another question. Who the heck is the Seraphim then? The entity who granted the Doomslayer his abilities in the first place? Well, Doom Eternal is launching right around the corner, folks. And I can't wait to see what more information it will unveil. Needless to say, this was just a theory. I can be completely wrong about any of this. For all we know, the Doomslayer isn't a Doom Marine. But regardless of what actually happens, I am really hyped to play Animal Crossing New Horizons for the Nintendo Switch. I mean Doom Eternal. On that note, I do realize that the Doom Eternal art book has been leaked. Within it, a bunch of new material is out. I decided, for the sake of fairness, to not include information within it for this video. The reasons for that is, at this point, with Doom Eternal coming out really soon, getting first-hand knowledge like this may be bordering on spoiler territory. As such, utilizing the contents of the art book may be seen as cheating in terms of theory crafting, since it would remove some of the mystery involved. You could argue one of the funnest things to do leading up to a release is the mystery. Sometimes not knowing much and theorizing based on that is really fun to do. Plus, there are many people out there who wish to get into Doom Eternal without getting spoiled. So for their sake, I crafted this video with information purely from id Software officially released trailers and gameplay, in addition to lore bits found in the previous entries. So if anyone is watching from the future, I am probably wrong on some, maybe all of the points presented here. But if I am to be incorrect, then let me be wrong with these accounts in mind. Research credits go to Eric Nomad Hickston, Red Drum, and Cortec. These guys really helped out in terms of investigation and analysis. Let's hear it for them. Also, really sorry for the delays in getting this upload out there. I feel like I've been saying that a bunch of times, but I will try to upload more frequently. At any rate, this channel has been experiencing a lot more traction. The last Doom vid performed way better than I thought it would, and this channel reached 2,000 subscribers, damn! From the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you guys are interested, I may do some special video detailing how exactly I animate these videos and such. Which brings to mind, special thanks goes to all of our Chad Patreon supporters. Seriously, my dudes, your pledges really mean the world to me. If you want to see Night Owl continue on, donating as little as $1 over in Patreon will honestly go a long way. Currently working on expanding Patreon benefits. If not, liking and commenting also helps a great deal. I have some special uploads planned for the future. Can't wait to show them all off. Regardless of what happens though, have a wonderful rest of the day or night, and have a damn good one.